In the heart of the Middle East, tensions between Israel and Iran simmer dangerously close to boiling over. But what if the next U.S. president could tip the balance between peace and war? With just 10 days until the U.S. election, the stakes have never been higher. To understand why this election could determine the fate of Israel and Iran, we need to look at how each candidate's approach could shape one of the world's most intense conflicts. On one side, Kamala Harris promises a hardline stance, determined to maintain pressure on Iran with strict sanctions, support for Israel, and zero tolerance for nuclear ambitions. Donald Trump, meanwhile, suggests a different approach, one that favors cautious engagement, perhaps opening doors for negotiation. But is that a risk that could bring stability, or will it create an opportunity for Iran to pursue its own agenda unchecked? Israel has made no secret of its stance on Iran's nuclear ambitions. They're unacceptable. In the last decade, we've seen cyber warfare, covert operations, and escalating threats between these two nations. Israel considers Iran's nuclear program an existential threat, and their key ally, the United States, is central in this standoff. The wrong policy change, or the perception of weakening U.S. support, could push Israel toward taking matters into its own hands, leading to, what exactly? Preemptive strikes? More covert operations? The outcomes could spiral into unprecedented regional conflict. Now let's imagine a scenario where the election leads to a more aggressive U.S. foreign policy. Suppose the U.S. doubles down on support for Israel and maximum pressure on Iran. Would that stance embolden Israel, leading to increased military action? How would Iran respond? With defiance, with escalation? A tighter alliance between the U.S. and Israel could serve as a deterrent to some, but for others it might trigger a stronger backlash, drawing regional powers like Saudi Arabia and Turkey into the fray. On the other hand, if the election brings a leader who favors diplomacy, the path might look very different. Renewed diplomatic efforts could open a door for talks, even possibly resurrecting a nuclear deal. But the risks are real. Would Iran use this as a way to ease sanctions, then ramp up their nuclear capabilities in secret? And how would Israel react to what it perceives as a security threat not being taken seriously? The Middle East is a region where shifting alliances and mistrust are commonplace, and one miscalculated move could destabilize the whole area. This election is about more than domestic policy. It's about a global balance that could tip overnight. Israel and Iran are watching this election as closely as American voters are. Why? Because the result could embolden, reassure, or potentially corner them. For Israel, the stakes are survival. For Iran, it's about reclaiming influence and regional power. And for the U.S., it's a balancing act of unprecedented consequence. Remember, in a world as interconnected as ours, the reverberations of the U.S. election won't stop at America's borders. Allies, adversaries, and entire regions are positioning themselves for what comes next. Will it be a path toward peace marked by risky diplomacy? Or are we heading toward a new era of conflict where words give way to action? With only 10 days to go, this election could shape the fate of millions. As we count down to the vote, we'll be here to break down every shift, every statement, and what it could mean for the future of Israel, Iran, and the world.